Hey everyone, Jennifer Lee Chen here from NBC Sports Bay Area. Whew, that last game was the best one of the day. Washington versus Tampa Bay, walk-off field goal. I mean, you can't ask for a better game than that, right? Um, so the Washington Commanders advanced 23 to 20 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and one of the best games of the day. The rest of the games have kind of been blowouts. So it's the first game where the away team won the playoff game, and it was a rookie, Jaden Daniels, at the helm there for Washington. So, exciting game, and it's been an exciting weekend and a weekend off for me, which is different for football still going on, but got a chance to watch the broadcast today, and Fred Warner was on ESPN's NFL Countdown, and what a fantastic job he did. I mean, he's got a future in broadcasting if he wants, because he was calm, he was cool, he was collected, he was very articulate with his thoughts. He had a lot of things to say about the teams that were still involved, how the defense was going to play them, what the challenges were playing the certain offenses. So really good job for Fred Warner. He also was asked a lot about Brock Purdy, and if he thought that Brock Purdy was the guy. If does he, he was asked, is Brock Purdy the guy that is going to get a huge contract next year? And they asked him if there was any doubt. And Fred Warner, these are his words, he said, not at all. He said, Brock Purdy, he's the man. He will be the 49ers quarterback for a very, very, very long time with plenty of Super Bowl rings on his fingers. Let's get one first before we say plenty. But it was good, the vote of confidence from Fred Warner about Brock Purdy. And, he's been the guy that's been there. And, Fred Warner had a really good story about how when Brock Purdy was running the scout team back in 2022, he was dicing it up against Fred Warner and arguably one of the best defenses in the league that year. 2022's defense was really good. So, he said, hey, I was dishing it out. He was giving it back to me. Fred Warner is notorious for talking trash during practices, and he did that with Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy was giving it back to him. So, I mean, Fred Warner from the beginning thought that Brock Purdy had the it factor. He said he thought that he was definitely worthy of beating out Nate Sudfeld for the number three position. He said, it's like he also said, Purdy, I love you, man. Thank you for being my quarterback. He's like, last pick in the draft. Nobody even knew who this kid was. He was our scout team quarterback in 2022 when we probably had the best defense in the league. He's in there at practice with the no-look passes, dicing up our defense every single week. I'm back there pissed off. I'm giving it to him, and he's giving it back to me with the trash talk. So I mean, like, it's been a competition between those two. And for Fred Warner to give Brock Purdy his flowers like that, says a lot. And yes, it wasn't the best season for Brock Purdy, but he was still number three in QBR since he started as a rookie, behind only Josh Allen from the Buffalo Bills and Patrick Mahomes from the Kansas City Chiefs. So, Fred Warner had a lot of great things to say. Brock Purdy's made of the right stuff. He's like, with quarterbacks, the thing that is the deciding factor is in elite quarterbacks or not is the processing speed. How do you process the game when the bullets are flying and everything is on the line, and being able to read coverages, diagnose, deliver the football, extend plays, and Brock Purdy does it all at a high level. So, some pretty nice things that Fred Warner said about Brock Purdy. All right, so other news for the 49ers. They interviewed Jet Modkins for the special teams coordinator position. He is currently the special teams assistant for the Detroit Lions. And you're seeing all these Detroit Lions names come up because they had a week off, right? So they have the bye. So their coaches are able to interview. So that is why you're seeing all the Detroit Lions coaches being interviewed by the 49ers and other teams. So Jet Modkins is the son of Curtis Modkins. Curtis Modkins was the running backs coach for the 49ers in 2016. So that's before Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch took over in 2017. So he was with Chip Kelly. So from San Francisco, he went to the Chicago Bears. He was the running backs coach in 2017 for Bears. Then went to Broncos, and now he's with the Minnesota Vikings. He's the running backs run game coordinator. So that's Curtis Modkins and his son Jet Modkins. So football family. He's the assistant special teams guy with the Detroit Lions, and he is the one who interviewed for the special teams coordinator position. Now, The 49ers obviously have to do the Bill Walsh, minority coaches interviews. So he's one of them. And interestingly, Kyle Shanahan got in a little bit of trouble because he didn't interview minority coaches for the offensive coordinator position. Matt and I talked about it on the 49ers Talk podcast, which is now out, if you want to download that. But the reason Kyle Shanahan, I think, didn't realize he had to interview is that Clay Kubiak is going to do the exact same job that he's done for the last 2 years. It's just a title change. So Kyle Shanahan didn't think that he had to do the whole interviewing process. He was just kind of giving the guy a promotion in title, but his job description doesn't change at all. So I think that's where the miscommunication is. Anyways, um, outside of that, I spoke to you guys about Juwan Jennings yesterday about how he didn't get fined. And so he, really should have been kicked out of that game. Really kind of a bummer for him that he didn't reach 1,000 yards. But I've been asked a couple questions about whether, him missing the 1,000 yard mark is a detriment financially to him, and it's not. He doesn't have any escalators in his contract for 2024. He does, however, have escalations in his 2025 contract, which is the last year of his contract. So he signed a 2 year deal, 2024 and 2024 and 2025. So he's signed through 2025. He doesn't have any guaranteed money after that. So I would think the 49ers should manage an extension for Juwan Jennings so he has more guaranteed money. In 2025, he does have escalator steps. So in 2025, and it's what's crazy is that all of his escalators in 2025, he did it in 2024. So 50% of the snaps, he gets 1.5 million. 60 receptions, he gets $666,667. If he has 600 receiving yards, which he by far almost 975, he gets 666,000. I don't know why it's all these sixes. It's 666, comma 666. You can do the math. If he did 6 touchdowns, 666, comma 667. It's a lot of sixes. But Juwan Jennings would, if he had last year in 2025, he'd be making a lot of extra money. So he's a guy that is a priority for the 49ers to re-sign or rework an extension for him to give him some guaranteed money, along with George Kittle. I think that has to be done. And don't know what's going to happen with Kyle Juszczyk. He is also signed through the 2025 season. He took a pay cut to stay with the team. His bigger part of the salary in this contract is in 2025. And so he made $1.2 million in 2024. He's set to make about five in 2025. I don't think that's going to happen. The 49ers have a lot of space against the cap, and they're preparing for that because of Brock Purdy's impending contract, which could be 50, 60, upwards of that $1 million a year. I know it sounds crazy. It's funny money, but we've talked about the percentage of the cap before. But the good thing about the 49ers is that the Yorks, Jed, Denise, Dr. York, and the twins, they are not stingy when it comes to salary cap. They want the 49ers to use all of it, to spend it on players to keep them in the building. Because there are owners that, the cap could be $272 million, and they're saying, oh, you know what? Only spend 200 of it. You got by with 220 million last year. I think you should just get by with that this year. So the good thing about the Yorks and the organization is that they allow John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan to use the full extent of the salary cap. So they don't get fined. It's keep it under just a little bit. But not all owners are doing that. So good on them to allow Jed or to allow John and Kyle to be able to use the salary cap to its extent. So they can sign guys like Kittle. I think Juwan is another one that's a huge need. Kyle Juszczyk is one. Dre Greenlaw is maybe 1B, and Brock Purdy is 1A. I think those guys need to get signed, and I think they're going to need to use all of that $272 million to make sure that they keep those guys in the building. All right. Watching the game again, that Washington game was the best game of the weekend thus far. Um, Man, there's been a lot of issues with special teams. There have been fake punts, there's been missed extra points, there's been missed field goals, and the fact that the Washington Commanders won off a doinked field goal that actually goes through the uprights, par for the course for the day. So exciting game there. Going back to the defensive coordinator position, I know I've talked about Jeff Ulbrich a little bit. Um, he's a guy that's from Morgan Hill. Has close ties to the 49ers, played for the team for 10 years. He went to Atlanta. He was there for 6 years as linebackers and defensive coordinator, and then New York Jets as the coordinator. He's a guy who just, he's a great defensive player, defensive mind, defensive coordinator. Robert Saleh obviously did also interview. He may be wanting to be a head coach again, but I don't know. He maybe wants to get away from head coaching and go back to being a defense coordinator. Sometimes I think a lot of guys get into this head coach mentality and then they realize how much being a head coach entails and you get away from the coaching a little bit. That was what Brandon Staley told me this year. He's like, head coach is very global. And he said being a defensive coordinator is kind of more specified. And I think he likes that part of that job as opposed to being a head coach. So some people and some people's personality are kind of better suited to be a coordinator or a position coach as opposed to being a head coach. So maybe Robert Saleh is interested in the job as defense coordinator. Maybe he is still looking and interviewing. He is interviewing for head coaching jobs as well. So we'll see what happens. All right, everybody. One more game in Wildcard Weekend, and that is the Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Rams, which is taking place in State Farm Stadium in Arizona. They kind of take everybody in, like they took the Niners in during COVID. So kickoff is at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Los Angeles is the home team, and apparently trucks went to State Farm Stadium, painted the field so that it will look like the Los Angeles Rams home game. But of course, it's real grass there, whereas in Los Angeles, it's turf. Don't like that. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the game today, and I'll come back with another update Monday, maybe after the game. All right, talk to you later.